Hey, it's Miss Lauren, the OT here, and I am going to show you today how to make your own Battleship game, if you're familiar with that. So I'm going to show you a few different ways to do it. So for the kids in maybe pre-K or kindergarten, I'll show you one way, and then if you're a little bit older, I'll show you a little trickier way to do this. So you're going to need a piece of paper and some markers or pencils or crayons. And optional would be a ruler. If you're a little bit older and are familiar with using a ruler, you can do that. Or you can use a straight edge. So this could be anything that you have that is straight and firm enough so that you can hold it and draw a line with it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to fold our paper. And I've got my paper here. I'm going to fold it from short side to short side. And to fold, we're going to kind of loosely bring the ends together. And then we're going to pinch the corners and slide them around until we've got them lined up exactly how we want them to be. And make sure both ends, and it looks like my paper is a little bit off, so I'm just going to try to do it as close as I can. So you're going to pinch, push down the edges, hold them down with one hand, and you're going to slide your finger like you're sliding a Ziploc bag along both ends to fold the paper. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to be using a straight edge today that is an empty cereal box. So I've just folded one of the sides over and I'm going to be using that edge. And if you don't have a ruler, you can also make a little mark, two little marks on it, so that you can use that to measure where you're drawing. And you also don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it's a good way to practice using a ruler if you don't have a ruler. So I'm going to make one line, not exactly on the left, but a little bit from the left, so maybe about 2 fingers width or so. I'm just going to make a little dot where I'm going to start it. And I'm going to line up my straight edge to the dot. Draw from one mark down to the second mark. Okay. Then I'm going to turn my straight edge and line it up with that first mark. Make sure I'm holding the straight edge down with my helping hand. I'm going to draw against it to the second mark. And then same thing, I'm going to line it up. We're making a square here, so we're going down, over, up, and back over. So right now I'm going to line it up with this side. Hold it tight. And then draw straight up to the next one. And since we're not using an actual ruler, it might be a little bit off, but we'll see. So then, however far apart these are, if they're a little bit off, that is okay. Looks like mine are fairly close. So I'm going to hold that steady, and we're going to connect the 2 ends of that at the top so that we have a square. So I have my square, and now what I'm going to do is make it into a grid. And if you have a ruler, you can measure it so that you're actually putting your lines at the halfway point, quarter point on each side. But if you don't have a ruler, that's okay. You can just make a little dot, and if you want, you can ask mom or dad to help you, or whoever's around. I'm gonna make a little dot near the halfway point on every side. Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and connect them top to bottom and left to right. So I'm lining them up, making sure that they're both touching the edge of my straight edge. I'm going to hold it steady with my helping hand, and I'm going to draw against the straight edge, top to bottom. I'm gonna turn it, line it up so that my straight edge is touching both of those dots. Hold it down steady with my helping hand, and then draw against the edge to make a straight line. So now I have 4 squares. And if you want, you can stop there. If you want, you can keep going to make it a little bit more complex for our older kids. So now you're going to do halfway points in each of these sides. That'll make it into quarters. And again, if you have a ruler, you can measure it so that it's accurate. And if you don't, that is okay. You can just estimate. And it's okay if it is a little bit off. And so now again, we're gonna connect the top and bottom, left and right, to make our grid. So we wanna make sure that those dots are both touching the straight edge. We hold it down tight. You can push a little bit to make sure it stays steady while you draw. We're gonna draw against the straight edge to make a line. And again, it is okay if it is not perfect. Okay, and left and right, I'm gonna make sure it's touching that edge and then push down to hold it steady and draw against it to make that straight line. And it is okay if it is not perfect. All right, so I'm gonna stop here, but if you wanna make it more complex, you are welcome to do so. Just do the same thing, halfway point in each of the sides around and connect them. So now you're gonna start with the folded edge closer to you and the open side away from you. And you're gonna write numbers or letters at the top and numbers across the side. It really doesn't matter which one goes on which side, but you want to make sure it's consistent. So I'm going to do letters across the top. A, B, C, D, and then numbers down the side. And you want them to be right on the square that they're corresponding to. Okay. And then we have our grid labeled, and now we are going to trace it. And what you want to do is you want to open it and then fold it the other way. So you're going to switch the directions of that fold. So right now my grid is on the inside of the fold. And then I'm going to flip it over so that I'm drawing on the top side. And you don't have to make them perfect. You just want to try to make a grid. And we're just practicing our tracing skills. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Okay, so now we have our grid. We don't want to copy the letters and numbers yet. So we're going to open it up, fold it back the way it was before, so that our original grid with the numbers and letters is on the top. And when the open side is facing us, that grid with the numbers and letters should be upside down. And we're going to open it up, and we should see our grid that we just traced. And now we can label this grid the same way we labeled the other one. And I did the letters across the top, numbers along the side, but you don't even have to use letters and numbers if you don't want. You just have to make sure that it's consistent. So when I have my paper folded now, with the folded side away from me, I should see an upside down grid, and then open it to see a right side up grid. Okay, so now you get to pick your spots for your ships. They can be ships or they can be whatever you want them to be. But we're going to be trying to guess where the person that you're playing with hid their ships. So you can do 1 square per ship if you want, or you can do kind of like in the game how, here I'm going to draw a square here. And so this represents 1 ship. You can do a ship that's 2 squares long. Three squares and so forth. So depending on how tricky you want to make it, you can do that. So now this inside one that's right side up, when you have the folded edge away from you, is going to be your board, and this is where you hide your ships. So I'm going to pick a few different colors, but you don't have to do that. I'm going to do 1 here. You're going to try to color it in all the way. Okay, so there's 1. Just going to put it over here too, so I have a little key, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I'm going to have a 2 square ship. And again, it can be anywhere on the board where you have 2 squares next to each other. And you can switch it up too if you want. You don't have to color in the whole thing. You can, if you're not really working on coloring or fine motor precision or grasp, you can do different designs. You can draw different shapes inside the squares. Whatever you want, or whatever you're working on, really. So there's my 2 square ship. And then, so I'll draw stars in these. Okay. There are my 3 ships. And again, you can have as many ships as you want. You can make them as big as you want. The bigger your grid, probably a better idea to do more ships, maybe up to 5, or I forget if the original Battleship game has 5 or 7. However you want to do it, to make it trickier or easier, it's up to you. So now what you're going to do, and the person that you're playing with should also have done this, but you want to make sure that you can't see what they're drawing, because the object is to guess where their ships are. So what you should see when you guys are sitting across from each other, or if you want, you can be laying on your belly, you should see your partner's board like this. And this is going to be where you record your guesses. So you're going to record your partner's guesses, and your partner is going to record your guesses. So you're going to take turns, and if you remember how a grid works, I'm just going to review it real quick for those of you who don't know. So each box has a corresponding letter and a corresponding number. So for example, if I'm choosing this top box, it would be A1, or you could also say 1A. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you're both on the same page. So I would guess A1, and then for my drawing, since I do not have anything in A1, this would be a miss. Okay? But for example, if I had guessed B1, B1 is a hit. So I would say hit. Okay. So if the person that you're playing with guesses B1, which is this square right here, because we have the letter B here and 1 here. So they go together to meet in this square. So this is B1. If my partner guesses B1, I'm going to write it down here. And you can also label this if you want. Guesses. B1. And if you want, you can also write down what you guessed. So wherever you want, any extra space on your board, you can do that. Okay. So if my partner guesses B1, I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to say, that's a hit. And you can do a check mark, you can do an X, any way you want, or you can just, anything to indicate where they guessed. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come over to this one. You can flip it around so you can read it a little bit better. And since it's a hit, you can do an X through it. You can do whatever you want to indicate that it is a hit. You can color it in, whatever you want to do, just as long as you guys both are agreed on what the rules are. So that's a hit. And then if you want, you can play that you take turns no matter what, or you can play that if you get one right and it's a hit, that you get to go again. Either way is fine as long as you guys are both in agreement before you start. Okay, so a good idea, if you guessed B1 and it was a hit, is to guess somewhere next to it. So if this person were to guess A1, we would write it down, A1, and A1 is a miss. So you can check it off if you want, just to show that it's been guessed, or you can draw whatever you want to show that it's a miss. But then on this other one, you're going to indicate that it's a miss by doing something different. So for this one, I'm going to do some magic seas across because they look kind of like waves. So like in Battleship, it's the water. So sea, up and around, up and around, up and around. So you can do magic seas, you can do little tiny circles, whatever you want to do to show what a miss is, you can. So once somebody gets all of the squares in your ship, you can tell them that they sunk your battleship. And so for this one, it would only take one square hit to sink that one. And if you want, you can cross them off when they hit them. So that is how you play Battleship. Okay, so that is how you can play Battleship if you don't have the actual game, or also just for a fun activity to do to work on handwriting, ruler use, fine motor precision, all that good stuff. So I hope you had fun. I hope you have fun playing it, and I will see you guys next time.